I think you have to kind of accept that you are part of the entertainment industry. If you're going to go on stage and you're going to expect people to come out of their, come out of their houses, drag themselves away from YouTube and Facebook, you have to accept that you're part of the entertainment industry, and I think we have done that, and I think the folk scene has done that. However, there is a flip side to this, which is what about social music, which is where, of course, it all came from. I also wanted to mention a quote, quite often quoted quote from F. Roots, I believe. Probably about 10 years ago, Norma Waterson was asked by Colin Irwin whether she considered that the folk movement had succeeded, which is an interesting question. And she thought about it and said that actually, if you were to take it on its own terms, you would have to say that it had failed, because when it started out, what it was about from her point of view is it was about bringing social music back into the communities, and particularly taking the music of the traditional music of a particular area and giving it back to the communities so that it could sort of become part of the fabric of everyday life. And in Norma's words, what actually the folk scene achieved in doing was creating a professional touring circuit for musicians. So on its own terms, you would have to say that that's a failure. So a few impacts of professionalisation. I think one of the things is that when you're on stage and you're trying to put on this big show, something I quite quickly came to accept was that the audience wants you to be slightly detached. They don't want you to be. They don't want to see you hanging around at Wetherspoons before a Bellahead gig, eating 5-bean chili, which unfortunately is exactly what I still do at most Bellahead gigs. And I always feel like I'm actually not doing my job properly whenever somebody spots me doing it, because it kind of kills that excitement. You're going into a gig, you've paid a lot of money to come and see this, and there's this big sort of stage show, and all you've got in your head is me eating the 5-bean chili, in Wetherspoons, and so there's a tension there that if you're creating this kind of false picture of the performer, of what it is to be a performer, then there is a tension there between them becoming a part of the social, going back into the social aspect of the folk scene. So I think it's a tension. It's not necessarily something that is always detrimental, but there's a tension there. Also, we have lost, I think, some of these social aspects of the folk club. The floor singer thing has really, I think, gone away quite significantly, when I think back to the 2000s, early 2000s. I remember a quite high up act quite early on in my career, sitting around after a festival gig, and they were kind of slightly boasting about the fact that they now said in their rider that there were to be no floor singers at their performances. And I remember thinking, oh, that's not what the folk scene's about. And then a few years later, I found myself doing exactly the same thing, thinking, I don't want people who've come to see us do a show who might not have anything to do with the folk scene. And I think this is the issue. Coming along to a gig and then being confronted with this slightly odd situation of having to sit through 45 minutes of people some people fantastic, some fantastic floor singers around, but then, some people who aren't. So I remember going through that same process as well. So I think you have to sort of accept that level of professionalisation maybe does have a detriment to the social aspects of the folk scene, potentially. I think almost more profoundly is that it reinforces the idea in people's minds that music is something that belongs to a professional elite. And it's something that you consume, it's something that you pay money for, and you go and sit and you receive kind of passively, and that's great, lovely, that's a transactional relationship. And the danger is that then further reinforces that idea that music isn't, because what music actually is it's something that belongs to everyone, and particularly folk music, and that seems to me to be at the core of what makes folk music important, is that it is about music as an everyday part of life, in the way that laughter is. And so there's the danger that then the music starts to become inaccessible and this kind of elite thing that people don't feel that they can be a part of. Those are all dangers, but I don't think it needs to be like that at all. And in fact, I think, and this is the important bit, that what we can do, if we're canny about it, is we can actually make the two things work. The professional side of the folk scene, which is just going to get more and more professional as far as I can see. I think it's still on this kind of trajectory. And social music making, and I think those two things can work very, very well side by side and can in fact reinforce each other.